Hello. Today I'm going to talk about the origins of Shelly, our oldest hermit crab. She didn't come from a very nice shop. I would call it a shop. I'm not going to say where we were, but we were at this store near the ocean. They had shirts, toys, candy, blah blah blah. And then I see hermit crabs for the first time in my life. I loved them. Some of them were dead because it was a wired cage, only one food dish, which was basically empty, painted shells, which is the worst part. Painted shells. And then I had no clue painted shells were bad at the time. So I was just a clueless kid who knew nothing about them. My mom just got them. And basically, I had learned to care for them, and then I realized they're beautiful creatures. But my first hermit crab was named Craboo. Sadly passed away because I had no clue that they needed to be sprayed, because I was clueless at the time. So, and basically, first of all, Craboo had a metallic purple shell, painted. That's probably one of the reasons why he died. Sadly, actually, we couldn't tell if it was a he or she. I didn't know at the time, so I was just assuming. Then my brother's hermit crab ended up passing away from being in the wrong hermit crab shell, which it was a blue hermit crab shell, which he named it blue because it had a blue shell. We had no clue that they were bad and that he had the wrong shell. So one day we found him dead. We had no clue what happened. We assume the entryway is that small that maybe one day he just tried getting out of his shell so to walk around for a bit. And then he just died probably from the pressure or something. He probably tried to get out of his shell. And then we end up with James, our next hermit crab. And then basically when we got James, I was so excited. I named him James especially. He was actually just amazing. And then later we got Brutus, a very territorial crab. He hated other crabs. He wanted to be like the boss of the crabs. And basically, he at first started attacking James one time, because of the fact he switched shells for a more natural shell. Right, very normal. And then James had a shell very similar, but slightly smaller. So James switched. And then Brutus one day just started attacking James, trying to get him out of the shell. It was like he was just laying on top of him, trying to use his pincher to pull him out. We got him off, and then we moved him to a second hermit crab cage for them. And by the way, we did get rid of our wired one because that's supposedly what killed Craboo. Shelly survived that. She completely did. She was moved to a bigger containment. But back to the story. So, we're pretty sure he was so egotistical and thought he was so good that he was fine being alone. They were right next to each other. Well, they couldn't see each other really because we put their caves, logs, facing the opposite direction. So all was going fine until probably after a couple months. We're Brutus probably forgot about the shell James had. Except when we put them in next to each other, they were happy. fine. We put him in there for like probably 3 hours together, in their containment. And then we find that Brutus had ripped James out of his shell. And we are so scared because we've never had that happen. And then Brutus sadly passed away from that accident because he wouldn't let go of the shell. And he hopped into the old shell, which was kind of sad. He was egotistical, but he was still a nice crab. And then James moved into a shell he's been looking at for quite some time. But he wasn't growing very quickly, so it was taking a while. So he had to get out of his shell and quickly retreat to the shell he was been looking at. That's almost a good size for him. Ended up being too heavy for him. So we got the shell off of Brutus after he passed away. We completely rinsed it out. We put James. We put the shell back with James, and then he switched back to it. And then one day we find him dead, which was the day I uploaded that YouTube video. We're pretty sure it was from the injuries from Brutus ripping him out of the shell. But after that, Shelly was so sad. She honestly didn't want to eat anymore. Until we got the hermit crab babies, which she loves them to death. She would protect them. Basically, the first day we had them, she wouldn't stop following them. Toby and Coney were best friends since they were at the store, the pet store. They were best friends, so they don't stop following each other because they've been in there for a little while knowing each other. So Shelly was just following them, and she would never sleep. She would just sit there staring at nothing, making sure they're safe. Until after a while, she's like, they're safe. I don't need to protect them. They're fine in here. So she stopped, right? Very normal. This life continues on. And we're starting to realize that Coney and Toby are growing pretty quickly. So, and Shelly, still a happy crab. She's still kind of sad about the loss of James, but everything's fine, really. The story ends where we are today. So, if you have any questions, just ask them in the comments below about Shelly.